Welcome to the Clarity Advisor Show, where you'll learn how to grow your team today. Join Ken Trupke and his guests as they discuss what works and doesn't work to grow your team in today's world. And now, your host, Ken Trupke.
Hello again, and welcome to the Clarity Advisor Show. As you move through your career from frontline supervisor into management and ultimately into senior leadership, one thing that doesn't change is the need to make decisions. Whether those decisions are popular or even correct at the time, you learn and you move on. My guest today has a long career, and he's been on the front lines in sales, marketing, and operations. And for the last 14 years, he's been in senior leadership. So please help me welcome today my good friend, Nelson Wilner. Nelson, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ken. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure. I know you've got some hard-earned wisdom and insights to share with the audience today. So why don't you back us up a little bit? You've been 14 years now in senior leadership. Tell us a little bit about where you started and how you got into those positions.
Sure. Actually, I'll take you a little farther back than that. I'll take you back to the start of my professional career. So having just finished college, went to go look for a job. And this is back in the Stone Ages, back in the 80s. And there were no jobs available. So I took my first job out of college was a riveting machine. I was working in a factory. And so obviously I knew I wasn't going to stay in that position. But nevertheless, I really didn't enjoy it. But I did my best to learn as much as I could and started my career off in a very humble way, trying to be as observant as possible. And so a good message, I think, in terms of my career was that I tried to learn people along the way, to see people at their best and maybe at their worst, and also learn the processes of a manufacturing plant in the same vein. So it was a good learning experience. And of course, I moved out of that position and had wonderful mentors along the way who taught me and worked with me. And it's very good to kind of move your career along the way and have people that want to mentor you along the way. So I was very fortunate in that regard. So back to the beginning, it was a good start. And I'd say the message is to try to be a sponge along the way and try to understand as much as you can at a job you like or maybe a job you don't like. It's very important.
So how far into your career were you when you got your first leadership position, and what was that?
The first leadership position really was probably 10 years into my career, 10, 15 years into my career. It takes some time, I'll give you an old quote. It's experience is the teacher of all things. Actually, Julius Caesar said that. So that's going way back. There's no replacement for experience. And so you can't really manage people very well unless you have a good sensitivity to people and try to put yourself in the other person's position. That's something you gain over time.
Absolutely. So talk about that a little bit. What were some of the things that you observed, maybe good leaders doing or not doing, that you said, yeah, that's something when I get into a position I'm going to want to do, or that's something I definitely won't want to do when I get there? What were some of those things that you picked up that then applied as you hit that first position?
Back in the old days, back again in the 1980s and also in the 1990s, you'd be sitting at your desk and your boss would come up to you and, smoking a cigarette normally and saying, hey, I want you to do this. Here's your project. Here's your deadline. We need to get this done. And you'd say, well, what is this for? Why are we doing it? Well, you're doing it because I told you to do it. That's why. And so I think one of the things we learned over the years, somebody finally had the idea of, hey, let's actually share our vision and our mission and what we're trying to accomplish with employees. And so my managers have all been good, no criticism, but it was just the way it was done. I think what I've learned along the way is work with employees, stay close with them, let them know what we're trying to accomplish. What's their mission in the bigger picture of the mission and the vision? It's really important stuff. That's not just business school talk of vision and mission. It's really important that everyone know where they fit in and what the future might look like.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that you picked up that early in your career, because for sure today that is a trend. People really want to know that why about the business. you can argue whether customers care about your why, but for sure the employees, your team cares about the why. They want to be there for a purpose and for that mission. And when they don't know what that is or it's not clear, it's tough to buy in. So I also want to make sure everybody knows that that was serious. Like people used to smoke in the office, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the case. Ashtrays and smoke, and yeah, that was the way it was.
Yeah, it's not an exaggeration. Okay, so you get your first leadership role, then onto kind of middle management on your way to senior leadership. What were some of the things you picked up as you expanded your responsibilities and got maybe a bigger team?
Yeah, again, it's a lot of it is about fundamentals of people. We all want to fit in. We all want to feel like we're part of a bigger mission, and we want to have our managers understand us. And so, really, today in the current environment, it's a more of a holistic view of the employee. So, that manager who, again, I really liked, who told me just to do it because he said so, has evolved into a manager right now that is true leadership, where your employee knows what they need to do, how they fit in. They know, again, the vision. They fit into the culture of the organization. And the manager also needs to bear in mind what that employee wants, what their side of the equation is too. What does that employee want out of this job and out of their career? So that's something that I think we've evolved into. That it's, of course, in my career, I hope to have done a good job being sensitive to what our employees want as well as what the company's needs are.
Great. Now, when you were starting out, you had some marketing roles and sales roles as well as operational roles. Walk us through which of those had leadership elements to them when you had teams under you and how those might have differed when you were leading a sales team or leading a marketing team versus leading an operation.
Yeah, different needs for sure. Salespeople, I can speak openly about salespeople and marketing people. We're far more emotional. It's far more of emotional ups and downs. We're operational people, a little bit more specific and more finite in what they need out of a particular day or a particular situation. So part of leadership is knowing your people, always is, and everybody's needs are a little bit different. We've all gone through these personality tests and personality quizzes over the years. It's important stuff to know that salespeople have a different want and a different need than operations people. And really, it just comes down to knowing your employees, to knowing the personalities of your employees, who you're working with.
Right. Now, 14 years ago, you moved into senior leadership after a career with several different companies in several different roles. Tell me about that. How did you make that move from maybe middle management or whatever it was called into that senior leadership role where now you've got a really broad responsibility?
I think I could sum it up. Well, it's always dangerous to sum things up, but I could sum it up in what the advice that I give to people in our organization who move into senior leadership, really, or anybody I know that moves into senior leadership. There comes a point in your career where you have to care more about the careers of the people who are working for you than your own career. So, we're all ambitious. We're trying to get ahead. You spend your career trying to get up the ladder, so to speak. And then there reaches a point where you really have to become unselfish. And you have to worry about the careers of those under you. So when you go into senior leadership, it's far more about responsibility than about privilege. People think, oh, I want to be an executive or I want to move up into senior leadership to have the privilege. If you're doing that for privilege, you're doing it really for the wrong reasons. You have to, when you move up into senior leadership again, especially, again, you have to care about others. You have to have a sincere care about others. And you have to, again, be able to put their career before yours, and you have to also make sacrifice. That's expected of a senior leader.
Right. As a leader at any level, you're only as good as your team. And the higher you go, in my experience, the less you actually do in terms of getting the work done, you get the work done through your team. And so if you're not connected with that team and they're not bought into you and you're not truly focused on them rather than yourself, it's really tough to actually get the work done because they're the ones that do the work. And the evidence of that is the day you call in sick, the work still gets done. But the day they all call in sick, well, not a whole lot happens when it's just you there. So
yeah. If somebody wants to get promoted just because they want to make more money, it's promoted into leadership, they're doing it for the wrong reasons, and they probably won't be terribly successful for very long. You have to want to sincerely help others and help them with their careers and in the organization. That's really important.
yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. So Nelson, you've got a big team right now, probably bigger than you've ever had, over 100 people. What are some of the difficulties in making decisions that affect so many teammates?
It's complicated, and every organization is a little bit different. But this is a wonderful group I work with now. We have a strong culture here in this organization, and that's one thing that makes this job an amazing experience to work with so many switched on people. And but when you work with so many people and you lead such a large group, there's a lot of different diverse opinions on a lot of different issues, and that's human nature. And so my job is to try to make sure we're doing a lot of different things, that we're moving the company in the direction that we're supposed to be moving into from a business standpoint. I want to make sure our employees are happy. That's the biggest thing. Life is very short. And if people are coming into work miserable or not happy to be here, then that's a problem. We want everybody to be happy. We want the company's, our employees' families to be happy, that mom or dad works here. And so that's very important. One of our fundamental thoughts here is that happy families make happy employees, and happy employees make happy customers. So it all kind of fits together. So in moving into this type of position here at Kawasaki, it's very important that we, of course, follow all the business practices we need to follow, but also make sure our employees are happy and productive, and that their careers are moving in the directions that they like them to move.
You're touching on so many good things. It strikes me that it's a good reminder to all of us that every individual on your team represents a family. And the average family statistically is like 3.1 people. So let's just round down for easy math to 3. So take every person on your team and multiply by 3. That's how many people you're impacting sometimes as a leader, because when, like you said, people are unhappy, they bring that unhappiness home. Now you're multiplying that unhappiness to a few other people. And so it makes a big difference how the leader approaches their team. So there's a couple other things I want to touch on when we come back, specifically how you guys navigated through the response to the pandemic. But we're going to first take a short break here on the Clarity Advisor Show.
Is your business where you want it to be, or on track to get there? Clarity Advisors helps business leaders improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success. We specialize in helping you streamline your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Call or text Ken at 616-822-2998 to have a complimentary 12-minute call to see what some clarity could do for you.
Okay, welcome back to the Clarity Advisor Show. We're talking with Nelson Wilner. And Nelson, you navigated through, as we all did, the response to the pandemic of COVID, but you had a pretty large team to do that. And you guys were 100% in the office prior to COVID. So share with us a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced during that time, and then subsequent to that, how you've managed the balance of remote work versus in-person work, again, coming from that over 100-person team, all in person.
Sure. Yeah. It's a big story, as everybody's had a big story related to COVID. And, first of all, January, February, March 2020, we all went home. We had a lot of people in our office that just had desktops, so we had to get laptops for everybody. We wanted to, our main goal at that time, of course, was health and make sure everybody was safe. The second goal was we wanted to keep everybody employed. And if you remember that time in early 2020, we were all worried. We didn't know what was going to happen and what was going to happen next. So we wanted to make sure everybody remained employed. And I'm thankful to say that everybody did remain employed throughout the pandemic, excuse me, and worked through the whole process. So we send everybody home. Like so many different leadership groups, we were trying to figure out when we come back. And it went from 6 months to 9 months, and everybody knows the story, how we kept going on with different variants. So long story short, we start our process of bringing back our employees. And we told our employees all along, we will come back. We work best when we're together. And so we did start to transition back into the office 1 day at a time, eventually 2 days at a time, when we felt it was safe. Again, it always had to be safe. And so now we are currently going 4 days a week in the office. Friday's an optional work from home day. And we've added a lot of other flexibility too around work from home as well. So it is a hybrid model. It's maybe not the hybrid model that some folks would like, but the responsibility and the bigger picture message here, Ken, the responsibility of every leader is to try to set up the company for success. And so each leader of different companies really has to decide, how is their company more successful? Are we more successful working from home totally, working from home 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 4? And how are we the best? That is the obligation of every leader, to try to set up their company for success. And so what we do here at Kawasaki works for us. And it's just like a family. It's not for me to say what could work for one family would work for another family. A business is like a family. And so it works for us. So maybe it doesn't work for another company, maybe it does. But it's really the obligation, again, to set your company up for success.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the idea that it's different for different companies. It absolutely is, because you've got a different team and different needs. Now, where you are is your team is substantially engineers and salespeople. So you mentioned that we work best when we're together. Tell me a little bit more about that. As engineers and salespeople, what makes it work better when you're together?
There's a certain factor, and maybe this is old school. Maybe it's actually very primal. Maybe it goes way, way back. People work better when we're together. We send our kids to school at school for a reason, and that's because we work better together than kids do. Better problem solving, better social skills. It all is better when we're together. When the pandemic was over, we went back to our families rather than Zooming with them. We even worship better together than we do online. It's all about human energy and being together. And, Zoom is great. It was a great intervention when we had to go home, and it kept our business running during the pandemic. But, you can't build trust on Zoom, and, you can't build relationships on Microsoft 365, on Teams. And so, there's that element of human behavior that can't be replaced. There's nothing like people being together rather than all of us isolated. There's just a certain X factor that I can't explain, that we're all better when we're together.
I'm sure not everybody was thrilled with that decision, though. You've got over 100 people. Kind of any decision any leader makes anytime is not happy with 100% of the people. So how have you worked through with people that didn't want to come back, that they got maybe comfortable working at home, or thought that they were more productive at home, and maybe don't buy into the idea that we're better together? So what challenges have you faced, and how have you navigated that?
Great question. Ken, we're still in the midst of that. We've only been doing this 4 days a week for about 3 months. And so we're still working through it. I mean, we as humans don't really like change. We didn't like the change of running home and doing what we had to do. And it's hard to go through the change of coming back. I do believe that time will heal these difficult feelings. But again, all companies are trying to find their place. Will we stay where we are forever? Maybe we will, maybe we won't. We're still trying to feel our way through this process. But right now, some folks are not happy with it, but I do believe we're getting our jobs done, and people are generally happy. And the company had learned, we did learn the needs of employees, and we did add tremendous flexibility, many things that I won't bring up here today, about the ability to work from home. aside from just the Friday work from home. So company learned to be flexible and to give a lot more, and the employees are taking also what the company needs too. So it's a give and a take. Like most things in life, it's a negotiation. And like most negotiations, both parties typically walk away not 100% getting everything they wanted. And so that's kind of where we are right now. But at the end of the day, I think most folks are saying, you know what, it's not so bad.
Well, that's great. And I'm sure they appreciated the kind of slow walk into it. You didn't just go from, okay, everybody's here. Okay, everybody's at home. Okay, everybody's back here 5 days
Right.
a week. It sounds like you gradually brought that up to speed from the 1 day to the 2 days a week, ultimately to the 4 days a week. And you're testing the waters now. Maybe you will go to five, or maybe you won't. So I love the idea that you're working through it with the team, and yet still retaining the idea that, listen, as a senior leader, you've got responsibilities to the company and your customers. And if you don't believe you can perform those well with everybody out, well, then you got to bring everybody in. And the best thing you could do is explain that and get people to buy into that, and the people that will, and the people that won't. And then you got more decisions to make. And so it's challenging. I love that you're laying out some of those challenges, because we've all gone through it, and senior leaders had to make those calls, and it wasn't always easy, and it didn't always make everybody happy, but that doesn't change what you're responsible for and what you need to do.
Right. And just to add also that, we've been very transparent with our employees. We respect our employees and we trust. It comes down to trust, really. We trust our employees. And I believe in my heart that our employees trust that the company is trying to act in the best interest of the employees as well. So again, we all can't agree on everything, but if both sides respect each other and both sides trust each other, that's a big step right there. And the employees, I believe, trust that we're trying to do the right thing here at Kawasaki for, the health of the company. Ultimately, this is about employment, and we're trying to keep the company healthy.
Right. Absolutely. And you've got to serve the customers that you're there for. And without a healthy company, that's not going to happen. And so there's always trade-offs. There's always balance in there. So I love that the way you've been working that out. And thanks for sharing that with us. Now, you mentioned throughout the course of this conversation some key themes, I think, of caring about others and building relationships and building trust, and having an other focus rather than a me focus. What are some other things that you've learned over the course of your career that you believe always work? They're principles that worked when you were being led. They're principles that worked when you were an early supervisor. And now as a senior leader, those principles applied all the time. What are some other things that you've come to learn?
Well, I think back to basics again. And it's really human nature type things. You can go to business school or read a lot of books, but it's about trusting each other. Employees and employers have to trust each other. They have to respect each other. That's very important. And if both sides care about trying to help each other out, those are constants that'll work. Other things that get added to that is it's important that employees know where they fit into the big picture. We all want to know the vision. We want to know the mission that we're on. We all want to feel like we're part of something. That's a basic constant that hasn't changed. And then again, since we just talked about it, I think we work better when we're together. There's no question that a meeting is different sitting around a table having conversation than everybody doing it kind of the way you and I are doing it today. It works, but it's not the same as being in the same room. So those are some constants that all come down to human nature of what people want out of a relationship, which is, really work is about a relationship.
Yeah. Have you found that the energy is different in the room, that it feels different, and maybe you get different outcomes with people sitting around a table versus people all on a screen?
Oh, no question. We all know that even if you go back to the old days where we had speakerphone, if you take five people sitting around the table, they talk differently to each other than when you add that sixth person on a speakerphone. Then everybody sort of projects in a different way. It's less natural, and so it's so much more natural. And we all know that the nonverbal behavior that we all have gives off so much more information than the actual words we say. And It's important, I think, to be together. Can we use technology? Absolutely. It's helped us be in contact. It helps us so much doing what we do, but it doesn't replace the human touch. It just doesn't even come close.
Absolutely. I love the speakerphone too. That's another kind of throwback, but we all had our speakerphone voice, and everyone would not only look at the phone instead of at each other, no matter how many people were in the room versus the one or two people on the phone. We'd all look at the phone, and then we'd all have that unnatural speakerphone voice to try to project into it. You're right. It just made the meeting always so weird and so much less productive. And I know a lot of people have moved into, as we've transitioned from speakerphone to Zoom meeting, people have said it's either all or none. Either we're all in person or we're all on the Zoom meeting, even if some of you were in the office, just to avoid that idea or that circumstance where people get that weirdness around the one thing that's not like the others. And it just, so people either go with everybody's on the video conference or everybody's in person, because you get that mix, and it seems like it just doesn't work. So
it does change. It does change people's behavior for sure.
Yeah. One last thing I want to touch on is you've mentioned a number of times building relationships and building trust. What specifically have you done? Just give us a couple examples of things that you think really go a long way for the leader to reach out to the teammates and make sure that they know that you do care about them and that you show how you build that relationship with them so you can build trust.
That's a complex question, but I think it comes down to many of the things I've said. We humans are very perceptive and very complex, and you can tell if somebody's faking it. Like, they seem to be interested in you, but they really just want to get the work out of you. We all know that feeling. And so I think if you're going to build trust, it has to be sincere, first of all. And if you're not that type of person, maybe you're not going to be the best leader. If you do care about people and you care about getting the job done, of course, then it comes naturally. You care about the person. Again, COVID, we cared about their health. We were an essential employee, by the way. We could have stayed in the business and stayed at work, but we disbanded for good reason, for health. So we cared about our employee. You have to care about your employee's career. Again, you have to care about their career and their career path. And it's not an imperative thing, but if you care about the employee's family and what they do in life and have a sincere interest in that, that's a great way to build relationships and trust. And there's an old saying that people forget what you say to them and the detail of what you say, but they always remember how you made them feel. And so we could all go back to former bosses, former teachers, that I don't remember the detail of what they told me, but they made me feel good about myself, or they made me feel valuable. And that's important. So I think it's important that leaders are sincere in what they do, but make their employees feel valuable, because they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at a talk yesterday, and one of the speakers mentioned that, how do you know who needs encouragement? And the answer was, if they're breathing. We all need encouragement all the time, because we're all facing hard battles. We're all have our own challenges, and you don't know what somebody else is facing necessarily, but they're facing something, and encouragement would help. So as a leader, 100% agree. Encouraging people and trying to build that relationship and build trust with them goes such a long way. Well, Nelson, this has been great, really valuable stuff. I know among many things that you spend your time doing, you are a learner and you like to read and consume podcasts and books. What's something that you've been reading lately, or a podcast that's caught your attention?
Reading, I really like Simon Sinek. He's a real good contemporary thinker that seems to have some of the old time fundamentals too that I like as well. And that's kind of how I view myself too. Sort of a new and an old kind of a thing. So I actually recently picked up Leaders Eat Last, Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last. I wish I had that book 30 years ago. It's not that old, of course, but I wish I had that many, many years ago. And so I would really recommend anybody in leadership or aspiring to be in leadership to pick that book up and just internalize it. It's a great read. It's very logical and talks about a lot of the human behavior things that we've kind of touched on here today.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a very good book. I think I can sum it up in put others first. And he's got some great examples with the military and other organizations. The idea that to be a truly great leader, you've really got to subordinate yourself to your team, and a lot of the things that you've talked with us about today. So thanks for that. We'll have that book link in the show notes. So Nelson, who would be somebody that should reach out to you or could reach out to you, and how best would they do that? What's the best way to contact you?
If you go to LinkedIn, it's a good way to contact me through my LinkedIn page. Other than that, just my email. Will you send out my email address, or will it be as part of this, and contact me by email? But I'm happy to help and talk to anybody. I've got a lot of thoughts and a lot of advice. And like my wife says, I always am trying to tell people what to do. So, but only for the sake of helping. I won't get anything out of it, of course. I'm happy to help if anybody does have a question that I've touched upon today.
Good. Well, thanks so much. Yeah, and we all want to share what we know. This is hard-earned wisdom. We've made mistakes. We've tripped over things. We've done things the hard way, trial and error sometimes. And when you find the solutions, you just want to share those with people. And so if somebody comes and asks, I don't look at it so much as telling them what to do as sharing, hey, here's what I've learned. If you can get something out of that, I'm glad to share it. So take it for what it's worth. But I love it when young leaders are reaching out because they want to grow and they want to go further, faster. And a great way to do that is connect with people who have been there. And you're definitely one of those people. So thanks for leaving contact information. That'll all be in the show notes.
Thank you. So maybe to finish where I started then, Ken, my riveting department job taught me to be a sponge and to listen and to learn and to observe along the way. And so I think anybody, again, aspiring to be a leader now that wants to talk about that and learn as much as you can, consume as much as you can. Ultimately, you're going to make your own call and make your own path and make your own decisions. But it's good to learn and to be a sponge and to absorb along the way.
100%. Great wrap up, Nelson. I appreciate that so much. I appreciate you and your time today. Thanks. And we'll be talking soon.
Thanks, Ken. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, and that brings us to the end of another Clarity Advisors Show episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Clarity Advisors Show. Clarity Advisors is a speaking, training, and consulting firm specializing in helping you simplify your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Connect with Clarity Advisors today to learn more about how they can help you improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success.